Thank you, Drew, for the introduction and for having us. Before we dive into our team's work in researching immersive reality for ocean education, I just wanted to explain how important a role the ocean plays in our everyday life, with the overall message that a healthy ocean means healthy people. First of all, the ocean covers most of our planet, about 70%. It also constitutes over 90% of three-dimensional habitable space on Earth, thereby being able to house approximately 80% of global biodiversity. The photosynthesizers in the ocean provide at least 50% of the oxygen in our atmosphere. The ocean also provides food and livelihood to about 3 billion people worldwide, and annually generates $3 trillion per year in ecosystem services like tourism, fisheries, and shipping. If the ocean were a country, it would have the 7th largest economy in the world. In addition, the ocean helps regulate weather and climate, provides pharmaceutical compounds, recreational opportunities, and has tremendous social and cultural meaning, especially for coastal and indigenous communities. Now, as you may already know, ocean health is rapidly degrading worldwide by the combined effects of human activities, including direct impacts like overfishing, marine pollution, and habitat destruction, plus the large-scale impacts resulting from a surplus of carbon emissions in our atmosphere, including ocean acidification, as well as the effects of climate change like warming oceans, sea level rise, more intense and frequent storms, and more extreme weather events in general. Though all marine ecosystems globally are affected by these factors, one example is that the compounding effects of these stressors have resulted in severe degradation of tropical coral reefs. We've lost about half of the shallow water coral reef area in the last 50 years. The good news is that we know what to do to tackle these problems. We have overwhelming evidence of the effectiveness of marine protected areas that, when thoughtfully designed, implemented, and enforced, can regulate fishing, mining, and dredging, support sustainable coastal development, and improve water quality. The climate crisis can be tackled through global efforts to reduce carbon emissions, invest in green energy, and protect global biodiversity and carbon sinks in the ocean and on land, for instance, by ending deforestation. The tough part is applying these solutions rapidly and at scale. And to do so, we need informed decision makers and citizens who are ocean literate, meaning they understand the impact the ocean has on them and the impact they have on the ocean. So to learn more about ocean literacy and marine education, I'll hand it off to a world expert on the subjects, Dr. Géraldine Fauville.
Thank you, Erika. So as Erika just described, if we want a healthy ocean, we all need to get on board and be ocean literate. But how do we become ocean literate? Well, marine environmental education is one of the drivers of ocean literacy. And there are two crucial aspects of environmental education to consider here. The first one is about connecting with nature, and the second relates to experiencing environmental issues. Researchers in environmental education have shown that it is very important for us humans to interact with nature in all its forms in order to feel connected to it. And researchers have shown that people who spend time in nature tend to include nature within their own identity. And we also know that people who experience nature more frequently care more about the environment and are more committed to protecting it. So now let's move to the second important aspect of environmental education, which relates to experiencing environmental issues. We know that simply providing information about environmental issues is just not enough to trigger change in behavior and in attitude. Instead, environmental education needs to focus on more personal connection and personal experience. So some researchers are claiming that experiencing environmental issues firsthand influences our behavior, attitude, and how much we perceive the risk related to these issues. So, in other words, experiencing an environmental issue decreases the psychological distance between your everyday experience and the environmental threat itself. So the two factors we discussed for environmental education, so the importance of connecting with nature and the of experiencing environmental issues, also apply to the marine environment and to becoming ocean literate. But the ocean also comes with its own set of challenges. When it comes to creating a connection with the marine environment, its remote nature becomes a barrier. So, for example, few people have the ocean in their backyard, as many people live inland. And even for coastal communities, most of the marine environment remains, hidden under the surface and far away from the coast. So only a small fraction of the marine environment can actually be experienced. And even accessing this small fraction of the ocean that is close to the shore is often challenging because it can be expensive and it requires an able body. Now, when it comes to experiencing marine environmental issue, all the barriers mentioned above apply, plus it is also dangerous or even impossible to experience the marine environmental issues we are all responsible for. Now, when it comes to promoting ocean literacy through marine environmental education, we can see that there are a lot of barriers we need to overcome. And one way to remove some of these barriers is to use digital technologies to help people learn and connect with nature. And this is what scholars call technological nature, which is any technology that in different ways mediate, augment, or simulate the natural world. And technological nature can take various forms, such as live webcam of nature, robot animals, or documentary, and also, of course, immersive environments. And now let me hand it over to Dr. Dani Pimentel to tell you more about the specific role of immersive technology in environmental education.
Thanks, Géraldine and Erika. Innovations in communication technology have always ushered in new solutions to age-old problems, and the advent of XR really is no exception. So, as a refresher, here's a figure from our Learning in the Metaverse guide, where we show the XR spectrum of virtuality. From augmented and mixed reality platforms on one end of the spectrum, overlaying and integrating digital content into our physical spaces, to virtual reality on the other end, completely immersing users' sensory experience into a computer-generated virtual environment. Regardless of where an XR device falls along this continuum, though, it's incredibly important for us to recognize that each XR platform offers unique affordances that make it an incredibly compelling tool for individuals in any industry, but especially for those in environmental education. As many of you know, XR affords learners the ability to engage in perspective taking, facilitating a sense of presence and social presence with others in a virtual environment. This creates for really realistic interactions within a space. From going on a shared virtual dive with a marine biologist in VR to inspecting a 3D model of a particular species in the palm of your hand with a partner 100 miles away. We know the possibilities are endless for both formal and informal learning. But this potential is rooted in more than just hype and an infectious enthusiasm about XR. It's rooted in decades of XR research that has shown, in general, that humans respond to and are affected by virtual people, virtual places, and virtual things, much like they are affected by real-world people, places, and things. For educators, this means that we can provide learners of all ages with varied barriers a fast pass to experiential learning opportunities, to allow them to have simulated lived experiences that are otherwise impossible for them to have in the real world. And this is incredibly powerful. So to help educators and creators like you wield that power effectively and judiciously, scholars like Dr. Jeremy Bailenson from Stanford have developed general rules of thumb for when using XR makes the most sense and can have the most impact. It's called the DICE approach, right? Using XR is generally justified when you're trying to simulate something that is dangerous, impossible, counterproductive, or expensive to do in the real world. Whether it's chopping down a tree to learn about deforestation or flying thousands of miles to embark on a scuba diving trip to study coral bleaching, some things can and should be done with XR because it can be a legitimate proxy. So we know what XR can do, and we know more or less when we should use it, given things like the DICE approach. But what does the evidence actually say about XR's impact for environmental education and sustainability? Broadly, studies have shown that VR has the potential to promote pro-environmental attitudes and behaviors, and can actually enhance knowledge and engagement with the subject matter. And we've definitely seen empirical evidence of XR's potential in our own research, both myself and my colleagues Géraldine and Erika. Take my VR game Project Shell, for example, which was built using Unity. I worked with sea turtle experts very closely to create a game where users could embody a loggerhead sea turtle in VR and experience the anthropogenic threats affecting the species throughout the key stages in its life, from hatchling to nesting adult, providing users with experiential knowledge of these issues and what actions they can take to mitigate those threats. We tested this experience in controlled lab studies, field experiments at museums and classrooms, and even film festivals, and the results, which were published in Nature Scientific Reports, show that this embodiment of marine life can significantly contribute to marine conservation behaviors, pro-environmental attitudes, and increased connectedness with marine life. But it's not just VR. My AR game, Penguin Rescue, allowed users all around the world to learn about the effects of oil spills on marine life. Users would place a virtual penguin in their sink and learn about the step-by-step process on how to rehabilitate an oil slick penguin themselves. In the summer of 2021, over 60,000 individuals around the world cleaned a virtual penguin, and the results published in the Journal for Nature Conservation showed that people who played this game were not our usual suspects, right? The users were not folks who already had a deep-seated interest and concern for the environment. On the contrary, the vast majority of our users who sought this simulation organically did not exhibit this psychographic profile, which is incredibly important for creators seeking to use XR for environmental education, because it shows that we can have wide-reaching impact. The interaction with the virtual penguin was also perceived as realistic and plausible by the users, which again contributed to environmental concern and greater connectedness to the species and marine life in general. And my colleagues Géraldine and Erika, along with many other scholars around the world, have done incredible research showing how VR can further bridge the human-ocean gap by creating a true one-on-one sensory experience with our oceans. As you see in the photo, they tested the Ballast underwater VR system, and they successfully showed that underwater VR can and should be done, right? It can actually influence how we process sensory information in simulated experiences like the ones shown there, which is huge when you consider that other work done by Erika, for example, has shown that virtual dives in VR, even without being underwater, can encourage sustainability and reinforce commitments to sustainable behavior change. Both studies are shown here and cited there, and I encourage you to check them out. Now, these are just some of the hundreds of studies examining XR in some capacity, but the truth is that of all the XR studies out there, very few of them have focused on the environment that covers more than 2/3 of the planet. The ocean, right, which is why we're here. And the crazy part is that when we look at the XR experiences that are out there about the ocean and look at the studies testing those experiences, the overwhelming majority of that work has been done by one or all of us in this presentation, or those within our network, right? Additionally, despite the huge potential surrounding the creation and distribution of immersive media content for environmental and marine education, we also just don't know that much about the development, implementation, and impact of Ocean XR on marine education specifically. And that's why we created IREEF. So to talk more about our IREEF initiative, we'll hand it over to Géraldine.
Thanks for this overview of XR research, Danny. So this lack of understanding of how XR could influence marine environmental education and ocean literacy was one of the drivers for Erika, Danny, and me to start IREEF. IREEF stands for Immersive Reality for Environmental Education Facilitation. And the goal with IREEF is to create a multidisciplinary strategy to increase the understanding of the role of ocean-related XR content in marine education. IREEF was created at the beginning of this year and is currently supported by a grant from the Unity Charitable Fund, which is a fund of Tides Foundation. IREEF is also an activity of the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science. So our plan with IREEF is to move the field of ocean XR using a strategy with 3 axes: content, research, and community. So in terms of content, we want to get a better understanding of what ocean XR content is currently available and how it looks like. We are currently working on mapping the ocean XR content. So we started by identifying more than 100 ocean XR activities. Then we created a codebook that we are using as an assessment tool to scientifically analyze all the content. And we are currently coding each of these 100+ ocean XR activities. And this analysis will help us better understand the strengths and weaknesses of the current field of ocean XR. And of course, we will make this list of ocean XR content available to the community along with all our findings. So in terms of research, as Danny described earlier, we know very little concerning the actual impact of ocean XR and technology in general on marine environmental education. So as a first step to start filling this gap, Erika, Danny, and I are guest editing a special issue in the peer-reviewed journal Environmental Education Research, where we will gather research articles on the use of digital technologies in general, so not just XR, for marine environmental education. In terms of community, we believe that creating scientifically, psychologically, and pedagogically sound ocean XR requires a very strong multidisciplinary community with, among other, environmental educators, XR creators, and marine scientists. So to create this ocean XR community, we just started designing a directory of ocean XR stakeholders. And now let me hand it over to Erika to talk about the next step for IREEF.
So we are currently analyzing data on the ocean XR experiences Géraldine mentioned and preparing this analysis for publication in a peer-reviewed journal. Plus, we're guest editing that special issue of environmental education research. We also hope to expand our analysis into 3-dimensional ocean assets and learn more about how creators and educators are using them. Plus, we are thinking about ways for the members of this community to get to connect, learn from each other, and build more impactful ocean XR content. We also plan to work with partners like government agencies, private companies, and NGOs to establish best practices for deploying quality and effective ocean XR at scale. For instance, we're currently discussing possibilities with NOAA about using these tools for public education of national marine sanctuaries. And we're looking forward to sharing the details on all of these things with you. We'll announce them on our website, ireef.io, and via our social media, so stay tuned. And here's Danny to talk more about how you can get actively involved.
So we hope that you are as excited and motivated as we are to realize IREEF's true potential. And it can only really be done with your involvement and with your help. So the next question is, how can you help? How can you get involved? Well, there's several ways. First, contact us, reach out early, regardless of where you are in the development process, whether you have an idea for using XR for ocean conservation or marine education, or whether you have a prototype already in the works. Reach out to us so that we can work with you to embed ocean literacy principles into your project more effectively, for example. Use us as a resource. The second one is share your ocean XR experience. Submit your current project into our repository on ireef.io so that others around the world can gain access to your experience and use it in classrooms or in museums. Lastly, let us test your ocean XR experience. Reach out to connect with us so that we can connect you to researchers who are not only interested, but capable of testing the efficacy of your Ocean XR experience. Let us find out if your Ocean XR experience is doing what we hope it's doing. And so with that being said, we really hope that you can join us on this journey. And on behalf of the entire IREEF team, we say thank you.